My name is Mr. Bishop,
And I'm Mr. Norman.
and this is the orientation video for the Voyager program for both 4th and 5th grade at Jefferson Elementary School. We're going to try to keep this somewhat brief as we go through the slides, and there'll be an opportunity for you all to ask us some questions in the coming days.
And of course, we can give you our emails if you would like to email either Mr. Bishop or myself, or Mr. Newell with any specific questions. So in the classroom, there are two of us. We each have our own classroom. Mr. Bishop is next door to my classroom. He teaches English language arts and social studies, and I teach math and science. And what happens is that the 4th graders begin the day with Mr. Bishop, 5th graders begin the day with me, and then around 11:30 we switch, and I take the 4th graders, Mr. Bishop takes the 5th graders, and then we do the appropriate lessons for that day. So the students do a little bit of trading throughout the day, but it works really well. And it's great too, because we have the students for 2 years in a looping program. We're able to really get to know that student in those subjects.
Yeah, and one misconception that people have is that when the 4th graders come in, they're just with me and they're just in my homeroom class, and then they go to Mr. Norman, you know, the next year in 5th grade, but like Mr. Norman said, they switch.
Okay, so the Voyager program is our highly capable program for the district. It is for 4th and 5th grade students who are needing an accelerated and compacted curriculum. So basically what that means is that the students that are part of our program understand concepts a lot more quickly than the general education student. So in order to accommodate that, and in order to, if you take a look at the diagram here, make sure that the highly capable students are at an instructional level, which we provide in our classrooms. We really want them to stay in this blue area, and that's what we do, is we make sure that we're moving at a rate that's appropriate, and that everybody's being challenged. So yeah, we kind of take the student and adjust our instruction to adapt to them and their needs. And you know, one of the things that we find, that Mr. Bishop and I find, is that whenever students join in 4th grade, it's oftentimes it's one of those situations where they really haven't been challenged like this before, that this cognitive dissonance, these things, the way that you feel when you learn something new that you don't quite understand, can sometimes create some discomfort in students, but that's okay. That's what this is for, right? We want our students to succeed, and we want them to feel challenged, but we also don't want them to feel crushed or burdened by any of this as well. So we're constantly modifying, but we do find that a lot of students have this cognitive dissonance in engaging in material at a level that they haven't quite had before. Okay, so I'm just going to go over some of the things that we do in math and science. We do follow the 4th and 5th grade curriculum for our district. I find that we cover that very quickly. Concepts for highly capable students are usually acquired within 1 to 3 repetitions, which means that we have a lot of time to do projects. So Mr. Bishop and I spent a lot of time taking the concepts that our students have learned and then applying them in a real world context. Okay, so this is a picture of some of the projects that we've done in the past. This was actually getting ready for a robotics competition. And once again, you know, we have flexible grouping. The student groups oftentimes work with parent volunteers to get ready for these different events. We will have some, I hope, some form of robotics tournament in the fall, and that is one of the big features of the math and science portion of our classroom. Here is a couple years ago, we went to Seattle. Nowadays, we're hosting more of an inter-district tournament, which is held in our own gym. But it's a lot of fun, and that's one of the main concepts that we cover from the beginning of the year until around Christmas, is engineering and the mathematics of robotics. Okay, we are always doing applied mathematics and applied sciences. Mr. Bishop and I try to take as many field trips as we can, both on buses and walking field trips, to expose our kids to lots of different places and businesses and organizations around the city. Again, we go outside. We're always doing some kind of of projects that extends and applies the concepts that we're learning in the classroom. Again, here's another field trip that we take. Whenever we take field trips as a highly capable program, we see our group as one collective group. So it's fourth and fifth, and we integrate together. And we find that that's really nice in getting the fourth graders exposed to the fifth graders who have already had a year in our program. And then the fifth graders can kind of act like a bit of a mentor for the younger students as well. We have a lot of crossover in our classrooms, lots of joint projects where fourth and fifth grade work together.
Yeah, and one of the things that we did recently this last year to give them even more time together is every 2 weeks we have a class party. They have to earn the class party, but once we have that, it's a different theme. So 1 week we might be doing board games. The next week we might be doing some sort of art or music show or festival type thing, and that gives them more of an opportunity to come together and just get to know each other. They do have time out at recess, but one of the things that we like to do in our program is listen to our students and allow them to reflect and tell us more of what they're wanting or needing. And that was one of the things we heard last year, is they were wanting more time to connect with each other beyond just their own grade level. So we'll hopefully be continuing that this upcoming year.
One of the things that you'll notice about our classrooms is that they're very dynamic. We have kids working in small groups and pairs individually, oftentimes in independent projects that are bounded within certain parameters, but it's open to definition from the students. So we see a lot of growth and exceptional performance whenever students are given choice. Again, here are some pictures from Mountain School. I'm not sure what the future of Mountain School is for the upcoming year, but if it is a go, that is something that the fifth grade does do. And like I said before, here's a picture of us on a field trip to the Mount Baker Theater. Mr. Bishop and I work very hard to schedule a very diverse offering of field trips. So let's hope that come next year, we're able to resume that. In my classroom as well, we do a lot of engineering, a lot of circuitry. This is a bit of a robotics circuitry program that we've done. Students really enjoy working with the equipment. We see a lot of blending of science and art. So we're using advanced tools like laser cutters and 3D printers to fabricate things, but there's a lot of creativity involved in generating those files. Again, we have lots of projects. This was from a maker project where every student could pair up or work individually to create something for our maker fair in the spring. This was a walking field trip with our fifth grade to the top of Little Mountain. Again, this is, I think what Mr. Bishop and I really love to see is that by the end of fifth grade, and this group has been together for 2 years, we see a really deep bonding with the students and a really interesting dynamic with our cohort. Another big thing that we try to do is invite in as many experts as we can to teach and show our students demonstrations. We're constantly connecting with outside resources, either via phone or video chat, or inviting them directly in. Lots of hands-on science. This was a Petri dish bacteria project we did back in January. Some of the projects that were from the Maker Fair. I do encourage my students to sew and knit. I believe that sewing and knitting is a very interesting way to apply mathematics and geometry. Another exciting thing that we have at Jefferson, which we just completed back this past year, is our greenhouse. And we were just getting started on some of the many experiments we were hoping to do in the greenhouse when the school district was closed in March. But once again, once we get it back up to speed and everything is normal, this will be a very common place for our students to learn. All right, Mr. Bishop.
So in our program, and honestly in our school as well, we really focus on growth mindset, having a growth mindset, which you may or may not have heard about before. But essentially, having a growth mindset is, having the ability to think, I can do this, and I will do this, and I will grow as a result of it. And it's not being fearful of challenges, but actually looking forward to challenges. In my room, one of the first things you'll notice when you come in is a big poster I have at the back that says, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. And so this is something that we talk about all the time with our students in both classes, in focusing on, understanding that challenges are a good thing, and that when you make a mistake, that's also a good thing. That's what helps you grow and develop. So one of the things that we focus on a lot in our program, as well as social emotional skills. So we talk to our students a lot independently, in groups, small groups and whole groups, about dealing with frustration, getting along with people other than them. What we find sometimes initially when students come into our program is they have a perception that other people view them as being way smarter than they are, or different. And so we like to teach them how to navigate through that and actually understand themselves and other people better. One last thing that I wanted to share was that every Friday in my class, we have class meetings with both the 4th and 5th graders separately. And that's a really important safe space for them to share whatever it is that's on their mind, whatever they're feeling, and they know that it's a spot and place where they won't be judged for whatever they say. So I wanted to talk about the difference between academic acceleration versus compaction. These are two different ways of going about when you're talking about gifted programs. So acceleration is moving more quickly through the grade level guidelines and then moving on to content that's above their grade level. So for example, some teachers will do this where, they'll have the student get through 4th grade and then 5th grade work and then 6th grade, and they just keep moving faster and faster. We are more compacting. We do some acceleration, but we're more compacting, in which we're teaching the grade level content in a shorter period of time, but we're going deeper with the material that we're covering, and we're challenging them to think about multiple aspects of one content area or concept or issue, and thinking about it in a myriad of different ways, as opposed to just kind of checking the box and then moving right on. So that's what you and your children can expect. So on my side of things, as Mr. Norman pointed out before, I teach English language arts, social studies, and also art. And so I'll just talk to you about some of the different types of projects and things that we've done in my class. So we do a lot of writing in my class. As a matter of fact, we'll do writing every day for about an hour, Monday through Thursday. Typically don't do writing on Fridays because those are early release days for all our students. So with writing, we write biographies. We'll do script writing where they write their own script and create their own play, which we'll record. I've taught them how to write letters of complaint and compliment, and they actually send those off to people that they want to hear back from on their issues. We do debate in our class. There's a lot of different writing that we do. And as Mr. Norman pointed out before, I frequently will have my students learn how to call upon experts for their research. So it's not just going in an encyclopedia or on the internet, but it's actually calling the people and getting, firsthand accounts of the information so that it's as accurate as possible. So in social studies, we have different curriculums for each year. So one year we'll teach, just like this last year, I taught them about the 13 colonies and the Constitution and the Revolutionary War. And then the following year, we talk primarily about Washington State and then Native American studies of particularly local tribes in Washington State. So another thing that I like to do with my students is community service projects or service learning projects. And in these projects, they really gain a lot of independence in how they think about things and being in charge of their own work. Just this past year, my 5th graders wanted to do a movie night. So they organized this entire movie night. They made probably at least 50 or more calls to different organizations or people in our city to try to get sponsorships. And they raised just around $1,700 for the Skagit Humane Society. And so I'm wanting to focus on that more and more as the time goes on, because it's really important for them to focus on the community. I also have access to a lot of musical instruments in my classroom. I've always been fascinated with music, and I play lots of different instruments. So when you eventually do come in the classroom, you'll see keyboards and guitars, harmonicas, ukuleles. There's all sorts of stuff, and I'm always adding to my collection. So I like them to be able to express themselves artistically in that way. Every Friday, we do a different art assignment. So we'll do ink drawings. I like to do a lot of digital work with them, such as animations. One of the things that I'm proudest of with my students that I've done for the last couple of years is student-led art projects. And that's essentially where I pass the ball off to a group of students. They design the entire project that they want to do. They figure out what materials they need. They gather the materials. They figure out how the whole thing's going to go, and then they actually teach that lesson to everyone else in the class in our whole program. And that piece that you see down at the bottom right there is one that's now hanging right outside the library. It's actually quite a big piece of art. And we have another one that just went up in the cafeteria too. So hopefully keep adding those as the time goes on. These are just another couple examples. I like to do murals with the kids because, as Mr. Norman pointed out earlier, we like to do a lot of group projects. These murals are really important for them to, learn how to work with one another to make something come together as a whole. So this is one of the things that I have to admit I love the most, is video production. We do a lot of video production in my room. I have a green screen that actually just folds down. Students can use that whenever we're working on video production or creative arts. And we'll do various productions throughout the years. We'll do interviews, we'll do music videos, documentaries. There's plenty of opportunities for students to utilize the equipment that I have. And as Mr. Norman said before, how he usually does a robotics class, I typically do a film class as well. That starts around February. Of course, due to the coronavirus concerns, we'll just kind of have to see how that goes as the year progresses, but hopefully we'll be able to do that this year as well. So another thing my students do a lot in class is podcasting. So I have a variety of different microphones and software for them to utilize to record their podcast. What I love about podcasting is that there's so many different content areas that are being utilized at the same time. So, students will do their research into a topic they want to talk about, and then they'll do writing to develop their own script for what they want to say. Then they'll utilize the technology and learn about editing and putting in music, sound effects, and then they figure out how they want to distribute that information out to an audience. And you'll see down at the corner there, not this last school year, but the school year before, I had a student who wanted to do a podcast about color blindness. And we had a colorblind student or vision deficient student in our class right down there at the bottom, Cade. And so through his podcast, he did all this research and wrote a script and everything. But one of the things that he did was he, at his church, asked for donations for the student so that he could get him a pair of Enchroma glasses so the student could see color. And as part of his podcast, he actually recorded his reaction and gave him the glasses permanently to use, and he's still using them to this day. So I really like how podcasting can incorporate community values as well.
Okay, so I will discuss the daily schedule briefly. Our start bell is at 8:30, and our last bell is at 3. We do have specialists each day. Fourth grade has a schedule that's different from the fifth grade. So fifth grade, they do not do specialists together, but we do have PE, STEAM, so that's science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, music, health, and library. So each day, each student has a specialist. And when we get back to school, if we do have a physical presence in the school, we will send that schedule home with your student. Lunch and recesses correspond to grade level classes. So in the mornings, fourth graders have a recess, and then the fifth graders, so they're not together. We do eat at the same time. Lunch is at about 12:40, and we sit near each other. So fourth grade's at one table, fifth grade's at the other table, and then all of the fourth and fifth grade students have recess for about 20 minutes after lunch. Says here that we move between teachers for daily instruction. We're not sure exactly what that schedule will be for the fall, but just know that half of the day, the fourth graders will be with Mr. Bishop, and then we'll rotate to my class to cover math and science for half the day.
Yeah, and Mr. Norman, I would just add that there's going to be a section later where you can submit questions that you have to us. And I can expect that there'll probably be a lot of questions about coronavirus concerns and how the schedules will look. At this time, we don't really have a whole lot of information other than the fact that it might be some sort of hybrid between remote learning and being at school, but honestly, we just don't really know. So if you can hold off on those questions, we'll make sure to get the information to you once we have it.
Okay, so we do have a continuum of services in our district where we serve the student from the time they're identified until the time they graduate. And one of the things that we take seriously is making sure that our program has a smooth transition into the middle school. Now, currently, our middle school services are at Voyager. So what we do is we have the students for fourth grade, and then again for fifth grade. And then in the spring, we work together with the Voyager administration and teachers and Laura Schoenberg, our program director for highly capable, to make sure that everybody is transitioned in a way that's appropriate for their levels of learning. Am I transport or you transport?
I can do it.
Okay, transportation. So every student, as long as they live farther than 1 mile from the school, will be provided transportation. We do have some students on the other side of the district, say far out towards Washington or Centennial, who do have to do a bit of a transition bus ride where they'll be taken to one location and then picked up by another bus to bring them to the school. But all students in the highly capable program will be provided transportation from their home to Jefferson.
And I would add too, you can expect, the first day or two to, be a little bit, it's always a little bit difficult that first day transportation wise, but I think that's kind of par for the course with every school. But we'll do our best to make sure that we keep the lines of communication open to you so that you know what to expect.
Later in the fall and then later in the spring, once again, if we are in a physical kind of setting in the fall, we do, starting with my class usually around in October, we do have an after school offering for a day or two after school, and then again in the spring for the film club. So that would be a time when students would need to be picked up if they do decide to participate.
So one thing that we wanted to make sure that we covered with all of you, so you have the information up front, is about student placement. So one thing that Mr. Norman and I really want to make sure is that, a placement in our highly capable program is the best fit for your child. So student placement will be evaluated by the end of the first term. So kind of right towards the end of, or a little bit after fall, we want to evaluate their performance primarily academically to make sure that this is the best place for them. And if the student, parent, or teacher has concerns, then we'll put a plan in place to try to make accommodations or any modifications that we might need to make sure that it works for them. However, if there remain to be concerns after that, then another classroom placement will be considered by the team, and we'll make sure to talk with you about this every step of the way if that is the case.
Okay, so as
So
Mr. Bishop said, there is a form that's been made for you to submit any questions that both, or either him or myself or Mr. Newell could answer.
yeah, and we will have this form sent out to your email address. I can't imagine any of you wanting to type in that atrocity of a link. So we'll send that to you, so it's a little easier. And it's a really basic Google form in which you can either ask questions to us about the program specifically, or if you're coming to the school and it's a new school for you, then you can ask questions about our school as well, and we'll, as Mr. Norman said, get back to you as soon as we can.
So we do hope that you decide to join us in the fall. I know that all of our students have had overwhelmingly positive experiences in our program. It really is, it's a culmination of a lot of work and thought that Mr. Bishop and I put into this program to make sure that it is as a positive as a learning experience as we can possibly make. So thank you very much. Mr. Bishop, do you have a parting word for us?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I have heard so many times of students coming into our program feeling unheard or misunderstood or misrepresented by others, and that when they come into our program, they finally feel like they have a place, and they're around their, like-minded peers that, might not be exactly like them, but understand them and hear them and see them. And so we're really proud of that, and we're really proud to, encourage and facilitate that. And so, yeah, we're always going to be here for them and here for you as well. So we're excited to get started next year.
Okay, again, so submit your questions, and Mr. Bishop, Mr. Newell, and myself are always available to answer your questions. So again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the fall.
All right, take care, everyone.